Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where it was today, 9 years ago, that one of the most well-beloved, renowned, and top-grossing musicals of all time had its debut. And this was, of course, Hamilton, which, as it stands right here and now in 2024, is the fourth highest-grossing musical of all time, behind Phantom of the Opera, Wicked, and The Lion King, all of which debuted much longer ago, and none of which are still active. Hamilton keeps on going, where the others are not. Certainly in the case of Phantom of the Opera, Lion King and Wicked, I do believe is still going. So let me correct that. But let's look at why Hamilton became so popular so quickly. And there are a lot of reasons for it. And I think to understand why, you need to look at how the sociology of the US and the political and cultural dynamics of the US changed so much between 2015 and 2024. Hamilton was a musical that was emblematic of the Obama era in which it was released. And of course, the cast appeared at the White House in 2016, the final full year of Obama's second term. Now, why do I say that? Because during that time, there was a tendency among mainstream culture and even in some elements of radical culture to fuse the conservative with the progressive, the themes of patriotism with the themes of the modern racial dynamics in 21st century America, which were, of course, very different than those of 18th century of America. It was about creating a authentic story about what happened in American society in the 18th century, but combine it with modern forms of music associated with the late 20th century into the 21st century, hip hop in particular, which is the genre of music that tends to typify the performances, the musical performances in this musical Hamilton. And it was all about reconciling seemingly discordant ideas, discordant eras, discordant ways of thinking into something that was incredibly patriotic and nationalistic. And I think that word is very important, but one that painted a nationalism that was brushed with the broad brush of radical, progressive cultural motifs, all stood up in a giant pot of pop culture, which has always been the easiest way to get a musical into the mainstream. And as I read, all of those other musicals on the list definitely fulfilled that role. Now, Hamilton, of course, is now the thing of legend. It's no longer shocking or surprising or new. It's the kind of thing that some people have seen 3, 4, 5 times. When people go in to see it, they know what to expect. High quality music, an interesting nationalistic story, this radical progressive telling of the story, and all of this being syncretic into a kind of, if you will, melting pot of an idea. And that's what people leave the theater thinking. Now, that was 2015 when it was created. And obviously, once something is created and once it's determined to be of a high artistic quality and of great historical importance, it can tend to outlive its era. For instance, people still revive the musical Hair, even though the things it was talking about are very much stuck in the 60s. But because it was legendary in its time, it's now legendary in all time. The Sound of Music, still incredibly popular, even though most young people today don't know so much or don't really care so much about what was going on in Central Europe during the Second World War and the era surrounding that period. But again, legendary in its time, legendary now. And so Hamilton definitely fits that mold, which leads me to the question, could it be made today? I don't think so. I think today's audiences have become much more polarized for several reasons. Now that people of all ages are well and truly on the internet, they were in 2015, but there was still this notion that internet culture and the rest of pop culture were slightly segregated. Those walls have long been broken down. And what that means is that everyone is segmented into various niches. If you want left wing music, you can find find it. If you want right-wing music, you can find it. If you want white music, black music, music by tall people, by short people, by men, by women, if you want heterosexual music, if you want LGBT music, if you want music from this part of the world or that, you see what I'm getting at. It's all very segmented, both because of the ease with which one can search and the fact that algorithms actually do a pretty good job in segmenting and segregating us into different things that the algorithm thinks we like. And then there's the question of, is the algorithm following the user, or is the user, in fact, following the algorithm? A little bit of both is my answer. And the other reason is that culturally, I think people are much less willing to see something that's syncretic, that fuses different things. In other words, the word nationalism and even to an extent patriotism has become anathema to radicals and progressive. Not all, certainly, but many. And that is mainly because of the sort of culture war 2.0s that grew up in the Trump era. In the Obama era, we had synchronicity of nationalism and progressivism. In the Trump era, which we're still kind of living in, because we see now that the Biden presidency literally was an interim presidency. So in this Trump and post-Trump era, we're seeing that nationalism and patriotism on the one side and radicalism and progressivism on the other seem not only unwilling but unable to find this kind of syncretic melting pot that was one of the mainstream cultural touchstones of this Obama era that is really that, and Hamilton is emblematic of that. So we've got more digital segmentation. We've got a culture war that won't allow these seemingly disparate themes to unite. And I think that people are also now exhausted with history because we've lived through so much history that we'd like to forget. The pandemic, these all of the crazy politics, assassinations, so many wars, ethnic cleansings, all of this really unfun stuff that we almost want to detach. And rather than see history with all of its wars and its revolutions and its extreme politicking, rather than looking at that for entertainment, we want to either escape, which is where the center ground is, or dig in even deeper and get more extreme. So if you imagine a bell curve, the majority of people want to escape, and those left on the right and left want to dig in even deeper and create things that are more segmented. So only this is a right-wing comedy show. This is a progressive left-wing comedy show. And because of that, I don't know that if something like Hamilton was released today, even let's say as high quality in terms of the production, the acting, the writing, I don't know if it would be as readily as accepted by audiences as it was in 2015. And if this makes you feel old, don't let it, because there are some decades where things just move faster than others. And I would say that between 2015 and now standing on the verge, kind of sort of 2025, a lot has changed. And we can look at the reception Hamilton had when it debuted to really gauge that change. Let me know what you think. I'm sure there'll be a lot of different opinions on this. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.